Hey guys, I'm Kevin. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to make a dehydrated version of Cajun Corn Chowder for backcountry camping. So welcome back guys, welcome to another episode where I'm going to feature some backcountry cooking here. We're going to make a dehydrated meal, and that meal is going to be Cajun Corn Chowder. I get a lot of requests for vegetarian meals, and I do make a lot of vegetarian meals at home. My daughter became a vegetarian in the spring, and so it's almost a full year now, and so we've been cooking a lot more vegetarian meals at home. And you know, lots of people are eating less meat anyways these days, so I thought it was appropriate to do another episode featuring a vegetarian meal. So here is what you're going to need to make this meal. A couple of onions, a couple stalks of celery, 2 to 3 medium potatoes, 1 green bell pepper, some garlic, a can of lentils, 2.5 to 3 cups of frozen corn, some vegetable broth, a package of coconut milk powder, and some spices. I have here some paprika, some chili powder, thyme, and cayenne. So let's talk a little bit about spices. You can certainly use a spice blend as I'm doing myself, a homemade blend, and there's lots of different recipes out there for Cajun spice. Some look a lot like this one, some look very different than this one. Or you could use a pre-mixed store-bought generic Cajun spice. That'll work too. So let's start putting this meal together. I always start with the onions. The first step is going to be to peel and dice these onions. There, that's looking pretty good. Get it all in the bowl. Then we're going to do the same with the celery. I'm going to cut off the ends and cut a few strips down the middle so that they aren't too wide at the bottom, and I'm going to slice away. The celery can go in the same bowl as the onions because the celery, onions, and bell pepper are all going to be thrown in the pot at the same time. Next up for dicing is the bell pepper. Cut some strips off the sides and remove the membrane. You don't have to do this, but I like to do it. And I don't like to waste the flesh on the ends of the pepper, so I spend a few minutes going after that. Then I'm going to dice the rest of the pepper. There we go, that looks good. Onions, celery, and green peppers, that's the classic flavor base in Cajun cooking. That is known as the Trinity. Unlike classic French cooking, where the flavor base is onions, celery, and carrots, known as mirepoix. In Cajun country, it's a little bit different. Of course, I'm not going for strict authenticity here. I'm just trying to make a meal that tastes really good in the backcountry. Next up, garlic. I'm going to pull apart the cloves and cut the ends off and smash them. You can smash them then cut the ends off, or cut the ends off then smash them. It doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to slice them open and remove the green shoot that's in them. That can be a little bit bitter. That little green shoot that you find in your garlic is said to give the garlic a bit of a bitter taste. I don't really notice it, but every professional chef I've seen on television always removes it to get rid of that bitter taste. I think it's one of those things that some people might be able to taste and others can't. So go ahead, remove it if you like. And I'm just going to mince up the rest of the garlic as finely as I can. A couple passes with a knife. Scoop it up, make another pass. And just keep doing that until you get the size you want. Now for the potatoes, I'm going to use a grater to process these. So when I make this meal at home for my family, I do not grate the potatoes. I will cube them and boil them for a little bit, cook them that way. But I do find that grated potatoes rehydrate so much better than even finely diced potatoes. So that's a dehydration tip. Grate your potatoes. They'll rehydrate much, much better. And to keep the potatoes from turning brown, I'm going to get a bowl of water and dump a little bit of lemon juice in there, just a couple tablespoons. That's going to create an acidic environment for the potatoes, and I'm just going to let them soak. That'll keep them from turning brown. Next, I'm going to open up the lentils. I'm going to dump them out and give them a bit of a rinse in the sink. They look good. So let's start putting this meal together. Time to turn on the stove, put a large pot on the burner. I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil, maybe a little bit more. There we go. Once that pot is hot, I'm going to add the Trinity. Bell pepper, celery, and onion. Give that a bit of a stir, let that cook down a little bit. Once it does, I'm going to add the garlic. I'll stir that in, let that cook a little bit, then the spices. Paprika, thyme, chili powder, and cayenne. A little bit more about spices. Sometimes I'll put the spices in as I cook the meal before I dehydrate the meal. And sometimes I'll put them in after I dehydrate the meal. There's no right or wrong way. My tendency is if it's a curry or a chowder like this where I want those spices to kind of cook with the meal for a while, then I will add them as I cook the meal. If I do that, because you're going to lose some of the spice flavor in dehydration, I will generally multiply the amount of spices I put in by 1.5. So I put 1.5 times the amount of spices. I'm going to lose some flavor in the dehydrator. In that final meal, I'll have the right amount. Next, I'm going to add the vegetable stock. And I'm going to rinse the potatoes. Just get some of that lemony taste off of them. And they're going to go in the pot. And I'm going to let that cook a little bit. I'm going to stir it around, bring that up to a bit of a boil. I'm going to put the lid on this and let this cook for about 10 minutes. Oh, you can see my camera. There, that's simmered for about 10 minutes. Now it's time to add everything else, the corn and the lentils. And if I was making this at home, I'd let that cook a bit, but since we're going to dehydrate this, it is ready. I'm just going to spread this out on my dehydrator trays. I go slowly because I'm really good at slopping this all over the place. There we go, that looks good. Nice even distribution. I'm going to put it in the dehydrator and set my dehydrator to 135 Fahrenheit or 57 Celsius. And overnight that'll dehydrate and it should look like this in the morning. I've taken the meal off the dehydrated tray and put it in a bowl, and it's looking really good. It's nice and dry. It should last a long time as long as you keep it in an airtight container. So that's the next step. And I've learned the hard way that it's much easier to write the name of the meal on a flat, empty Ziploc bag than it is a full one. Now I'm going to use a scale here. I always weigh my meals. And I'm going to get a bowl and tear that measurement out. And I usually put about between 125 and 150 grams of dry meal. So I'm going to fill this one up to 125 grams. There, that's just about perfect. I have not forgotten about the coconut milk powder. That goes in right now. One 50-gram package of coconut milk powder is enough for this entire recipe, so I'm going to fraction that down a little bit. On the American side, that's about 2 ounces, and on the side the rest of the world uses, that's going to be about 50 milliliters. And I did not hit the record button in time, so you'll have to imagine me dumping it into that bowl, but there it is. And the next step is to load everything into a Ziploc bag, properly labeled Ziploc bag. And there you go, Cajun Corn Chowder, ready for the backcountry, or for the sake of demonstration, my back deck. Now it's really important to give the pot a bit of a shake here. That way it's easier to guesstimate the amount of water to use. Now normally, for most meals, I will just cover the food with water, and that will work fine. Just like that. The food is just barely covered, which works for most situations, but because we're doing a chowder, we want more of a soupy consistency, we're going to add a little bit more water. I'm going to cover this and let it come to a boil. When it's ready, remove it from the heat. And I'm going to use my asbestos hands to lift that hot pot into the pot cozy and cover it, and I'm going to let that sit for a good 10 minutes or more. Finally ready. Let's take a look. Yeah, that's great. It's got a nice creamy consistency to it. That is just what I'm looking for. For the sake of the video, I moved the meal to a bowl, and if you want to, you can add a little bit of dehydrated, or in this case freeze-dried parsley, just to brighten up the meal. Alright guys, this looks really, really good. Let's see how this tastes. That's really good. That is really, really good. That's great. The coconut milk really brings it together and gives it a creamy taste. The spices I can tell, and it tastes very Cajun, but not overpowering. And the lentils and corn give it a real nice texture. That's a winner. You're gonna, if you make this and take it on a backcountry trip, you are gonna enjoy it. Thanks a lot, guys. Hope you have a great day.